Good afternoon. Today we'll be talking about physical barriers to communication. Ugh, talking to you is like talking to a brick wall. How many of you have ever heard that? This would be an example of a physical barrier to communication. By show of hands, who has ever heard this statement? I'm guilty. If you have ever been the brick wall, like I have been in past occasions, I would like to offer some insight. There are several different communication barriers that today, well, we will be discussing physical barriers. Some of the other communication barriers are cultural, organizational, interpersonal, and language. According to an article on physical barriers to communication by Harappa, a physical barrier to communication can be defined as an element or a physical factor that acts as a distraction to hinder the flow of communication. Some of the elements include, but are not limited to, time, place, noise, and space. There have been countless articles written regarding physical barriers of communication. Per an article written by Mrs. Pranitha Kamath, many barriers arise in the surroundings of our environment. These barriers create problems or confusion in communication. Physical barriers will cause messages to be unclear, which leads to a breakdown in communication. If you are unable to effectively address and solve these physical barriers, productivity, working relationships, and morale will take a hard hit, according to an article by Connect Team. So let us attempt to resolve the issue. Being able to identify the type of physical barrier is the first step in resolving the issue. So, as determined by bizfluent.com in an article entitled How to Identify Barriers to Communication, clarity helps both the sender and the receiver to figure out how they can improve their communication skills. By identifying which physical barriers are at play, you will be better able to ascertain a resolution. For example, if you are giving a presentation and there is noise coming from the hallway outside the conference room, you can determine the barrier is noise. In an effort to resolve this issue, you can simply close the door to mute the noise or to eliminate it altogether. As specified by an article by Type Talk, anything in the physical world, that is to say, not in your mind, that stands between you and effective communication is a physical barrier that can be addressed. Once the issue has been identified and the fix has been implemented, the problem will be resolved. To sum up, we have first to identify the barrier currently being experienced. Once identified, a plan can be put into action according to the problem. Okay, so for example, the room we're giving the presentation in is cold. We have identified the problem, a cold room, which would speak to environment. Next, we determine how the temperature is controlled, in this case, by a thermostat. We adjust the temp for everybody so that they get comfortable, we can give our presentation, they can accept what we're saying. So, in conclusion, we have learned that there are several barriers to communication, physical barriers being one of them. Moving forward, let us assess the situation in an effort to determine which barrier is in our path to effective communication. We can then be able to rectify the situation and break through the proverbial brick wall.